Welcome here. So, actually, the our clock on the wall is a little bit different than the computer clock, so we've got another minute. But thank you for being here tonight for another inner hour. I appreciate it. This is actually not my lumberjack impression, but tonight is part of the festival of Sukkot, and also called the Feast of Tabernacles or the Feast of Booths. So we're spending a lot of time outside. We have a sukkah, a little temporary shelter hut built that we spend as much time in as possible this week outside. And pretty rustic. There's lots of straw and things. So anyway, this is my Sukkot outfit tonight. Plus it's a little chilly. So anyway, welcome here. I'm going to take another drink of tea here, and we'll get started in just a moment because we have another minute on my computer clock. Be right there. So again, thank you all for joining me. If you haven't taken a moment to kind of just pause from the day, from the week, whatever worldly stuff and or stresses related to it you might be carrying, give yourself a little breather here for the next hour and let go of all that. Just be with the presence of God within you and among us. So I always light, you all know this, but I always light this little, it's a taper candle in this case, but I always light a little candle when we start for me. And reminder of the light from which we've come and which indwells us. So, a quick note on something that doesn't actually relate to any of you who are here, but I'm just going to mention it anyway because maybe in some other facet of your life it relates to people you know or things that happen in your community or in your family or in your church or circle or whatever. But one of the things that I'm trying to do in my life, which to me is helpful, is I'm trying to do what I say and say what I do. And I'm trying to stick to that, even when it's very not comfortable or convenient. So tiny example of that. So tonight, I hadn't done any exercise. I did a lot of physical activities, but I didn't do any actual exercise today at all, which is on my things that I need to do today. So I took like a 36-minute walk, which was okay for me. That was good enough. And it was at a time that it wasn't convenient to do that. I still had a lot of stuff that wasn't done that needed to be done before the inner hour. I was already tired because it's been a really long week with a lot of activities, both one by one and family stuff. And I was already tired and thinking, I'll just rest for half an hour or something. But I hadn't even made anybody else promise that I would do this. I just made a promise to me. And maybe you're not like me, but I find it far easier to break promises to myself than I do to somebody else. So I let myself down more often than I think I do other people. And so it felt really good, not the struggling to start the walk and not the beginning itself because I was tired. I felt much better by the time I got back though. But I physically felt better and I felt inwardly better because I did what I said I was going to do. And I know that's really small. I mean, that's not a big thing. If I hadn't taken a walk, the Earth wouldn't shift on its axis or anything. But um, if we repeatedly don't do what we say, something in us gets really out of alignment and we don't feel okay about ourselves. So if I tell you I'm going to meet you at 12:30 somewhere for lunch, and things happen, I understand that life goes on, but generally speaking, 9.9 times out of 10, I'm going to meet you at 12:30, and actually I'm going to be there a couple minutes early because I want to be ready to meet you at 12:30, and I don't want to get delayed by things. And so that's important to me. If I say I'm going to end a program at 8 o'clock, or I say I'm going to end a program at 4 o'clock, I try very hard to do that. Doesn't always work 100% of the times, but it works way better with me being attentive to it than it does with me being inattentive to it. And again, in a certain sense, that matters in terms of business and commitments, like you would think about that it matters. But it also matters in other arenas because there's a timing to things. And when the spirit within us is moving us to do something, to say something to someone, to pick up the phone and call someone, to go someplace, to do whatever it is that we're inspired to do, these very mundane little things, there's a timing to that. So if spirit is saying, oh, you may not know why, but if it's saying, oh, you need to call Stephen now, and maybe I'm really depressed and your call would really, really help me. You don't know that, but God does. Maybe I'm really, really elated with something very joyful, something that you would be happy about too, and you'll get another little burst of joy if you connect with me. But you don't know that until you do, but God does. So you're inspired, like, call him right now. And either to help me or to help you or both. But you won't know till you do it. But you're inspired to do it right now. And you think, oh, hey, I'm tired, not convenient, I'll do that later. And so you do it later. Maybe an hour later, maybe 15 minutes later, maybe 2 days later. But you do it later. And later when you call, you miss me. I'm not there. So whatever that connection was that would have benefited, been a blessing to me or to you, doesn't happen because we weren't attentive in the moment. We weren't responsive in the moment. And there's a timeliness and a time to things. Part of attuning ourselves to being responsive to spirit in that way so that we don't miss so many of those opportunities is to do what we say and say what we do, and to pay attention to beginnings and endings. If we commit to begin at this time, then we begin at that time. God willing, except in the extent of, in the event of extraordinary circumstances that you can't control. And if I say, or you say, I'm leaving at such and such a time, or I'll wrap up this meeting at such and such a time, for those of you who facilitate meetings, and some of you do, or stepping into that more, then do your best to end when you say you're going to end. So that's just a little. It's a very little thing, but lots of little things add up. And sometimes when we're off kilter in a bigger area, it can be traced back to lots and lots and lots of little things that we don't do and that we're not attentive to. So that's my experience, for what it's worth. Hopefully it's a benefit to somebody tonight. If it isn't, just, that's just Stephen rambling. So now we'll get to what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is another theme thing. A few readings from the Bible again. These are all from the Jewish Bible, or what Christians call the Old Testament. There's no New Testament ones tonight. And this theme, a very cheerful theme, this theme is brokenness. And really inspiring night, right? But I picked it in all honesty because that's what I was inspired to pick. Secondarily, in my personal understanding of that, just in the past week or two, I've had a number of meetings and a number of conversations with people who are genuinely anxious and very disturbed about what's going to be unfolding soon in our country and in the world at large. Very, very concerned. not just politically, but of course in our country that's going to have a big impact on many things, including the world. So there's been a lot of concern about that, and I think one of the things that, whatever other causes we might attribute to it, one of the things that the anger and violence and uncertainty and fear in the world, that we can certainly say about that, is there's a lot of brokenness involved. A lot of broken hearts, a lot of broken hopes, a lot of broken faith, a lot of broken dreams, a lot of broken societies, broken cultures, broken families. And all that brokenness contributes to the disorder and the chaos and the anxiety and the anger and the violence. So it's not a new thing. It's not a modern thing. It's as old as mankind. So I want to read you just a couple of things on that theme tonight that I hope will be a little encouraging. If you're one of those people that's kind of stressed out, if you're already in a good place with it, great. Stay in a good place. Do whatever you're doing because it's working. Stay in that place of connectedness to the divine in you that is not uncaring about what goes on around you, but not traumatized by what goes on around you. So stay in that place if you're there, and God bless if you are. If you're not, maybe a little bit of this will kind of help encourage you to let go of some of the worry and find a little more peace inside, I hope. So this is from Proverbs 18:14, and it says, "The spirit of a person can endure his sickness, but a broken spirit, who can endure that?" So if you're like me at all, I don't like being sick. I have never liked it. I certainly don't like pain. And yet, part of our life in a body. But it's different when we face those things with a willing spirit and a confident spirit and a spirit that has faith in our Creator and in what the Creator is going to be doing with us through the journey of our life. Different than when we don't have that, when we've given up, when the spirit in us, if you will, is broken or the hope in us is devastated, however you want to look at it. That's a really, really tough, that's much, much more difficult to endure. It's really difficult to persevere when we're in that state. And then this is like that, and a little more intense, but it's going to turn around here in just a moment with the quotes. But this quote is from Job, which, if you're not familiar with Job, is a very troubling book in the Bible. There's this guy that's by all accounts righteous, not falsely righteous, but genuinely righteous, doing what he feels inspired to do, doing what the teachings of his day called for him to do, being right with God, and all of a sudden everything is just a disaster in his life, through no fault of his own, at least apparently in the text. And he has a really rough time. So he gets very discouraged, and he does have a broken spirit for a while. This is from Job 17, and he says, "My spirit has been broken. My days are extinguished, and the grave is ready for me." I hope you've not been in that space. I have been in that space. Not recently, but I have been in that space. I hope you haven't. But if you have, these are going to sound familiar to you. It's a very dark place. And many people in our world today are in that place. So this is the beginning of how the Bible addresses some of that. Just some different places I picked. This is, again, Proverbs. This is 15:13. When the heart is sad, the spirit becomes broken. So a lot of times it's our emotional stuff that really overwhelms us. And then the second part of that is, but a joyful heart makes for a cheerful face. So again, we have now the importance of what we carry in our heart, whether we carry sadness, bitterness, whether we carry joy, hope. What we carry in the heart makes a huge difference in our vitality level, in our health, and in how we approach life. So that's one key right there. Not what you feel in your heart. Whether you feel joy, sorrow, happiness, sadness, fear, you're going to feel all those things as a human being. That's not what it's talking about. What it's talking about is what you carry there in your heart. And if we carry that sorrow, that pain, if we carry the joy, if we carry the hope, if we carry the confidence, if we carry, the anxiety, what we carry there and nurture and feed in us makes a giant difference in our experience of life. Okay, this is now a longer one. This is Psalm 51. And this has a lot of sort of keys in it that we can utilize, I think. And this is David, the author of most of the Psalms, speaking within himself, or perhaps out loud, but speaking to God. And he says, "Behold, you desire truth in my innermost being." So this is David talking to God again, so the you here is God. "You desire truth in my innermost being," meaning, among other things, that God doesn't want us to lie to ourselves or deceive ourselves. That we need to learn to be very deeply honest with ourselves. "And in secret, you make your wisdom known to me." So this is a common theme in the Bible also, that in secret God reveals his wisdom to us. Notice that it doesn't say, and it rarely says in the Bible. I won't say there's never a place that kind of talks like this, but I can't think of any, but there probably is one. But rarely does it say, "You reveal your wisdom to me through teachers. You reveal your wisdom to me through rabbis. You reveal your wisdom to me through signs and portents." It rarely says things like that, but it frequently says in secret that God reveals himself or his wisdom to us. In the New Testament, though I'm not quoting that here tonight, Yeshua says that too, about going into your home, going into your closet, closing the door, and in that secret place, pray to the God who dwells in secret, and he will reward you in secret. So there's, and I don't believe the secret here is the sense of only you can know it, that it's exclusive, but in the sense of what's called sod in Hebrew, which is that which is hidden or not yet revealed. It's not apparent, it's not obvious. You have to really go deep to begin to discover that reality. So I think that's the message here is you have to go into the deeper layers of yourself before you really discover that divine wisdom and that what Jesus called the divine comforter. Going on, I'm skipping around through Psalm 51. Then David says, "Hide your face from my sins and wipe out my guilt." So that's another clue, is that a lot of the brokenness that we experience is because we feel guilty about what we've done. And again, I disagree with many current teachers thinking that guilt is always a bad thing. I actually don't think it is. I think guilt can be a very constructive thing because it's making us it isn't self-honesty in recognizing what we've done that has really worked against our own being or really hurt someone else, and feeling bad that we've done that. That is what guilt means, and that is a, as C.S. Lewis wrote one time, there are things you should feel guilty for. That's something that hopefully you do feel, because if you have a conscience, you're going to feel it. But there's a difference between feeling that and then using that as a momentum to change your attitude and behavior and speech, and then free yourself from that. The problem, again, is not that you experience guilt over things that you should not feel good about. The problem is that you carry guilt long after the way it can serve you is gone, and begin to use it then instead of as a transformational tool to make yourself into a better person. You begin to use it to beat yourself with until you beat yourself into submission and convince yourself you have no self-worth, you're unlovable, and you can never succeed at anything because everything you do is worthless and you're awful. And I know that all sounds like exaggerations, but when our psyche gets in that state, it goes to extreme states. So, um, moving on, this is still all Psalm 51. This is verse 10. So create in me a pure heart, O Lord, and renew a willing and steadfast spirit within me. So now, to get our heart cleansed of these things, we've learned we don't want to carry them because of all the problems and brokenness they end up causing. So we don't want to, but there they are. So now what do? We just go, well, I don't want to think about it, and they're fixed. Well, good luck if you can manage that. I never have. This says, so we turn to God with all those, and we ask God to purify our heart. And that's the source of redemption, the source of transformation, the source of healing for us, to turn to that divine spirit to do that. And then to renew a willing and steadfast spirit within us so that we are resolute about our faith in God, so that we're resolute about our being children of God and being able to behave like that, so that we're resolute about living a life that reflects the divine in us, instead of a life that constantly denies it and doubts it and disaffirms it. And to be willing to endure what needs to be endured, and to be willing to go through what sometimes is a painful process of transformation until we are freed from some of these things that have afflicted us and begin to be a freer, happier, more joyful